Is Elias Pettersson ever coming back? I'm not talking about the guy who scores 70 points and plays solid defense. I'm talking about the electric version. The player who drove play, dominated the highlights, and put up 102 points just merely 3 seasons ago. Right now, he's on pace for 57 points. That would be his third off year in a row. Feels like the century mark is really just a fading memory at this point. But has anyone ever fallen this far for this long and actually climbed back to the top? I did the math, and the history books have a very specific answer for Canuck fans. To find a match for Pettersson, we need a specific profile, a player who hit 100 points, suffered at least a 3-season dip, and then somehow found that 100-point magic once again. The short answer, it has happened before. The long answer, it's incredibly rare, and it usually requires a massive change in circumstances. People forget just how rare 100-point seasons actually are. Petey did it at 24 years old. Since then, it's been a continuous 3-season dip. To find a true comparison, we can't just look at the guys who got hurt. We have to look for the authentic bounce back players who hit 100, went 3+ years without it, and then somehow found that magic again. We're going to walk through the list chronologically, but pay attention to the context, because that's where the truth about Pettersson lies. First up, we have none other than gentleman Gene Rattel, who is our first legit example, who had 109 points in 1972. Rattel scored 1,267 points across 1,281 games in his NHL career, but only crossed the 100-point threshold twice. The first was in 1971-72, as we mentioned, where Rattel became the 7th player in league history to pass the century mark. He remained at or above a point per game for the 3 seasons in between, but didn't hit 100 points again until 1975-76. The same season, he was traded to the Boston Bruins. Rattel notched 15 points with the Rangers before the trade, and then 90 in 67 games with the Bruins thereafter. A key difference between Rattel and Pettersson is that Rattel's 3 seasons in between his 100-pointers were all still relatively excellent. Next up, we have Dino Ciccarelli. Apologies if I mispronounced that. This is the one that should give you hope. Dino hit 106 points as a sophomore and then disappeared. Ciccarelli is a bit more like Pettersson in that his point totals were really all over the board. In the 4 seasons in between 100-point years, he put up 75, 71, 32, and 89-point seasons. His quote-unquote bounce back came in his 7th NHL season. If any example gives us hope for Elias Pettersson, it's definitely this one. Even though that whole 7th NHL season probably makes people shudder. Even better, Ciccarelli almost bounced back to 100 points a second time way down the road in 1992-93, where he got 97 points for the Detroit Red Wings after another 5-season gap. We have also Bernie Nicholls. People bring him up, but let's be real. Nicholls hit 150 points because he played with Wayne Gretzky. Of course, the next season, Nicholls himself was traded to the New York Rangers, and he never even broke 80 points again. This was, for all intents and purposes, a purely Gretzky-induced comeback. So unless we're trading for a McDavid-like player to play with Pettersson, this just isn't the blueprint. We also have Doug Gilmour. This is the most comparable situation. Gilmour broke out early, dipped for 5 years while moving from St. Louis to Calgary, and then would resurge, hitting 127 points after being traded to the Toronto Maple Leafs. It took a massive change in scenery and role, but it still happened. Is Petey being quote-unquote stifled by the current Canucks system, or is it the roster that is surrounding him? We also have Joe Sakic as an example, who hit 100+ points years apart, including once at age 37. This proves that elite talent doesn't just evaporate, it can be reclaimed if the player adapts their game. This is really just a case of a true superstar who occasionally elevated his game even further above his already great baseline on a few different occasions. However, and doesn't truly compare at all to what Pettersson has been working through. We also have Jaromir Jagr as an example. Here we get back into the examples that require additional context. Through this one, though, is still somewhat legitimate. Jagr put up his 4th 100-point campaign for the Penguins in 2000-2001 before being traded to the Washington Capitals, where he slumped by his own lofty standards for 2.5 seasons. A trade in 2003-2004 to New York seemed to spark Jagr again. But then the lockout wiped out the 2004-2005 season, and so Jágr played in Czechia and Russia for the duration of that. When he and the NHL returned in 2005-2006, Jágr posted his last 100-point season with 123 points in 82 games. Many credit the lockout and the time spent overseas, which rejuvenated Jágr's game. And he seemed to agree himself, because after 3 more seasons in the NHL, he went to the KHL for 3 more seasons before returning to the NHL in 2011. In reality, no other NHL player in history compares to the uniqueness of Jágr's career. But he did go 3 seasons in between 100-point seasons without any major injuries of note before that lockout. We also have Peter Forsberg on this list. Those that know the name will know the context immediately. Forsberg was one of the greatest talents to ever play the game, but his career was absolutely besieged by various injuries. He only ever hit 100 points twice, 6 full seasons apart, but that was a result of those 2 seasons being 2 of his only relatively healthy seasons. Forsberg put up 116 points in the 1995-96 season as an NHL sophomore and also won the Stanley Cup. He hit 90 points twice in the interim, but did not hit the century mark again until 2002-2003, where he got 106 points a year after missing the entire regular season. Pettersson has had injuries of his own, but they absolutely pale in comparison to what Forsberg endured over the years. The 2 situations really aren't comparable as a result, especially since Forsberg was regularly putting up 20-plus points, playoff runs during that interim as well. Some might argue and say that, oh, Kucherov did it, Crosby did it, but context matters. Kucherov's dip was a global pandemic and a missed year due to surgery. Crosby's was concussions and lockouts. When they were on the ice, they were always at a 100-point pace. Petey is healthy. He's playing. This is a performance recovery, not a medical one. That makes his path back much, much harder. History says yes, but the odds are slim. For every Doug Gilmour who finds a second peak, there were dozens of stars who hit 100 once and never see it again. Perfect example was Bernie Nichols. Petey is carrying a heavy defensive load, but at $11.6 million, reliable isn't enough. He needs to find that electric gear. Whether that happens in Vancouver or requires a Gilmour-style move is the biggest question facing this management group right now. Is the $11 million contract the problem, or is it the lack of help? A lot of Canuck fans have, asked this over the years. That has obviously been brought up. Is it the line mates? Does he need better line mates? We've all been through all that. We've all wondered that. But is that really the excuse anymore? Is it just Pettersson himself? But I'm going to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments section down below. I'd like to end this by thanking the sponsors of this video, starting off with none other than DraftKings Sportsbook, which is an official sports betting partner of the NHL. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, is built for the fastest game on ice. With player props and live betting, every shift, every shot, every save gives you options to get in on the game with DraftKings Sportsbook. New customers bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN, that's code THPN, to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8 HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino in Kansas, wager tax pass-through may apply in Illinois, 21 plus in most states, void in Ontario, restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets, which will expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. This is a limited time offer. Copyright 2026 NHL, all rights reserved. This video has been a presentation of both DraftKings Sportsbook as well as the Hockey Podcast Network. Be sure to check out the network for your favorite podcast covering your favorite team at thehockeypodcastnetwork.com, the home of hockey podcasts, where it's every team, everywhere. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to the Line Change for more daily coverage as we continue to count down towards the trade deadline. Also, so you don't miss, be sure to turn on that notification bell so you don't miss more in-depth analysis of your Vancouver Canucks. Once again, drop your comments down below. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys on the next Line Change.